Well, let's do this. Let's get started. Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is George Brown. I'm the Executive Director of the Highlights Foundation, broadcasting from mediocre internet in my home living room. And my kids are in the background working on some of their homeschooling activities today. This has certainly become the bright spot in my week to be able to have these webinars and gather with everyone. Lee Wind, if you're out there, I've tried to improve my audio quality, so do let me know whether we've gotten any better with that. Thanks for joining us. Allison, take it away.
So welcome this morning to our third installment of Highlights Foundation Gather. We're grateful to have Sarah Aronson hosting again and her special guest, Heidi Stemple, with us this morning. We've enjoyed lectures and lessons from both Sarah and Heidi at the Highlights Foundation. And this morning, we're excited to sit and listen to them in conversation about children's books, something they know an awful lot about. And of course, there will be a lot of nonfiction love going on this morning with the two of them. Sarah writes everything from picture books to novels, and as I keep talking about on Highlights Foundation Gather, her Just Like Rube Goldberg is such a perfect book for kiddos right now who their imaginations can run wild as they are building things all over their home with found objects and really getting into the spirit of Just Like Rube Goldberg. If you haven't checked out that book yet, please be sure that you do. Heidi also writes a little bit of everything from spy middle grade novels to poetry about stinky things. Eek, right? But in our house, this is not a surprise to Heidi. Our favorite is counting birds, the idea that helps save our feathered friends. It has back matter that is completely devourable for bird enthusiasts, but also those who are new to birding. And I checked it out. Both Heidi and Sarah have a plethora of books available on bookshop.org. So if you are able and you can support your indie bookstores, your local bookstores, by shopping for their books on bookshop.org. If buying a book right now is not in the cards, please be sure you take time to review a favorite author's work online or even book talk. Maybe you have a Zoom visit with some of your family members and you can talk a little bit about counting birds today. That's a great way to give back to our authors right now. We'll take some time to enjoy Heidi and Sarah in conversation, and then we'll turn to you for some questions. There is a Q&A section in Zoom. If you have questions for Heidi and Sarah, please be sure to put them in the Q&A, and we will get to just as many as we can after their conversation. So welcome to Sarah and Heidi. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get started.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Heidi. It's so nice to see you.
Hi, Sarah, my sister from another mister.
That's right. Heidi and I both come from families with domineering matriarchs. Heidi, close your eyes. Here's the word of the day. If she says it, and we hope she's going to say it, we all get to drink our tea. Okay? All right, it's clear now. Open your eyes. All right, so first and foremost, I'd like to check in with everyone I talk to all the time about how you're doing and how you're feeling during this time at stay at home. How is your creativity these days?
Well, I want to say that for those of us who work at home on a regular basis, our dynamic, our workday hasn't changed that much. Maybe it involves more people or fewer people at the house. So I think that's mostly what has changed for us. What's changed is our anxiety level. And for me, tons and tons of people are reaching out because they're worried about not being able to write. And I definitely experienced that as well. I managed to jumpstart that by gathering with friends and just sort of giving myself permission, wrote a long poem about the quarantine. I posted it on Facebook. It wasn't particularly good. You can go find it on my Facebook page. And that really helped me after about a week and a half of being home to jumpstart my creative self. I have to say, though, I believe the whole community was probably feeling the same thing that I'm feeling in the last couple days, is being gut punched by the loss of our friend and amazing human being. And I definitely wanted to, we had talked about, I definitely wanted to mention the passing of Tommy DePaula this week. And he was an important part of our community. He put the I in SEBW, I, because before he put his foot down, or his paintbrush down, I suppose, we were just SEBW. I grew up in that organization, stuffing envelopes. So I've known Tommy my whole life. I can't remember a time when he wasn't around. He painted my brothers and me for a book he did with my mom. Been to his house, he's been to ours. The last time I saw him in November, we had a long talk, and he definitely knew how much I loved him and the community loved him. I think that that's important for all of us to know. So I just wanted to say a little something about Tommy today. And I believe that that's going to affect mine and many people's ability to create again. A great loss can really step on your ability to create and to feel creative and to feel that what you're doing is worth something. And I think it's important to acknowledge that both in the loss and the anxiety column.
But I also think that his loss reminded me of his words and his joy and his absolute enthusiasm and bubbly personality and support of creativity. That and it reminded me of others as well, because the first time I heard him speak was with Trina Shart-Hyman, who also, I mean, I know I was lucky enough to meet her just once, and her light and her vision and point of view. I also got to revisit this week as I pondered over what Tommy's legacy meant to me. I remember meeting him, and I know he has said this to others because I've been seeing it all over the internet, to be yourself. And what a gift that advice is, to just put yourself in the work and be yourself. You can only be the person, the writer, the eyes, the ears, the heart that you are, and to not be ashamed of that, to celebrate that, in fact. And I think that his passing, you saddened me in that way that you are, like, it made me pause, but it also gave me a lift to remember what he meant to all of us.
Yeah, and he always looked forward. It was one thing that was really beautiful artistically, always looking forward, always moving with the market, which is something we all need to do. Hey, look, if you write a certain type of book, if you write folk and fairy tales and the market is now not doing folk and fairy tales, we move forward. My mom says, reinvent yourself every 7 years, move forward, look forward, try something new. And Tommy was great about that and talking about that and always wanting to do something new and different. And he was very much, when I talked to him last, looking forward to getting back to work. He had been a little unwell and he was looking forward to doing more work. So looking forward, always keep creating, always keep being creative.
I love that. Just even I can see an image in my head of looking forward is, when we look forward, we feel hope. When we look forward, we feel motivation. When we look forward, we're making plans for a forward. And that's a lovely thing right now to be thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk, though, about what I think you have been doing such a wonderful job of in our community, of helping us be kind to ourselves during this time of transition and disruption. How are you being kind to yourself on a daily basis?
I actually, this may sound sort of backwards. I'm pretty rough on myself. I'm a taskmaster, but I absolutely understand that after I've been in the business my whole life, but I've been working in the business for 25 years. I am not in any way afraid if I don't write something for a week or two that the muse has gone away. I am very gentle with myself about that. I know that stories are percolating back here. I know that eventually the words are going to come for the story that I'm revising on. I know that I will be able to get back into the research, and that I am working out things, even if I'm not writing. And I've been very clear with other people to be gentle with themselves, to stop beating themselves about the head and shoulders, because they are not creating things, that they're not in a place to do that, that their house is filled with children who need them 24/7 when they used to have this time for themselves. Or like me, their children are elsewhere. So I'm worried all the time and trying to be in touch. But what I've actually found, two things that I have found the most helpful, and they sort of piggyback on the other. One thing is to be in contact, to continue to be in contact. And I've created and been involved with a couple different groups, which are meeting face-to-face via the internet, to still do those creative contact, to listen to people reading their stories that they're working on and give some notes, and receive some notes. But that feeds into what helps me when I'm really stuck. And for me personally, and I'm a big fan of know your process. This doesn't work for everybody, but for me, it's what helps me. When I am helping other people, boosting how they feel about their creative process, it really feeds me. And I know that. So if I can't write right now, I'm going to ask if you need some help. Let's get together. I'm going to help you. I'm going to give you a critique. And these are my friends. And that helps me feel really super motivated. I was supposed to be on retreat with a wonderful group of women this past week, and we decided to meet through Zoom meetings instead anyway. And it was an unbelievable motivation knowing that I had some sort of accountability. And I did get sort of unstuck. I did work on the things that I was putting aside, but I do have to say again, when I wasn't working on them, I was not beating myself up. And I think that's key here. Please, if you are not working on something, don't beat yourself up. I wrote this on Facebook, and what I found was a gazillion people wrote and said, thank you, I needed this. And I tried to make sure I answered every single one of the comments personally, because I think everybody needs a cheerleader. And
I think everyone needs a cheerleader too. I think we all need to be seen, that that writing is a way of being seen, of being recognized, and that that fear when we're frozen is also a fear of not being seen and not being heard. I also think this is an opportunity. What I've always felt as a writer who's neurotic, I guess, that I have taught myself that unstable feeling is not the end, and that just means maybe I do things differently. And so sometimes I do a lot of research to get into a book. Sometimes I do no research and start writing. That's the benefit of doing multiple genres. It doesn't feel like cheating to do those kinds of things.
Yeah,
sometimes I speed write. Sometimes I just read and read and read. Whatever I'm doing, all of that goes under the category of writing and serving my writing life. And that if it's not words on the page, well, this is a time to nurture myself in a different way. It's giving me the chance to see things differently. And so right now for me, walking is writing, doing yoga is writing, listening to people is writing, this is writing, because that conversation as well as that stillness is feeding my creative heart.
My mother has the most amazing way of talking about this exact thing. And for those of you who don't know, I'm assuming that if you're here, most of you do know my mother is author Jane Yolen. But if you didn't know that, she has published, we're working in the early 400s books right now, so quite a few. And we always say write every day, but That's not realistic, and we all know that. And sometimes you write a lot one day, and then you have another day where you're not. But my mom says that you cannot write the real world or make up new worlds if you're not living in the world. Nobody sitting in a closet in front of a pad of paper or a computer screen is going to give us a convincing world. What does it smell like in that world? What does it feel like? What is the texture? What is the landscape? So the days that you're away from the computer, the days that you're away from your pencil, from your paints, whatever, she calls those gathering days, which I love, goes very nicely with our
hashtag here.
exactly. But it's being in the world, it's filling, I don't know, whatever metaphor you want to use, filling your bucket, gathering sensations and smells and what you see. You're not going to convince me that it's a tree if you've never seen a tree. I mean, even a fantasy tree. What if the leaves are blue? It doesn't matter if you haven't touched the bark or smelled what autumn smells like. These things are very important. So gathering days. So be gentle with yourself. A lot of this is gathering days.
I think that's one of the things that I have learned most from dipping into nonfiction is that, see how I did that? That the details, the authentic details, the experienced details, the truth, shall we say, enliven and lift the text in a way that perhaps I stumbled on before going into nonfiction, and now I do so deliberately. So let's talk a little bit about nonfiction, or what I like to call the truth, because really we are desperate for objectivity and truth right now, especially in this world we live in, is that there's been an assault on the truth. So as a person who writes truth, talk about how you find a story to write.
Well, I think finding a story is the easiest part, because for me, it's about falling over these things. I mean, they're laying in your path. You're reading an article, and it's just there. I'll give you an example. I have not written the book yet, so please don't steal my idea. I still really want to write this book. But I was thinking about writing about one subject. I love pirates. So I was reading this big, dense book explaining about the dive onto a pirate ship, and onto a sunken pirate ship that these people were doing. It's very technical. And in this 300 and something page book, there was one line, and it said, and on that day in whatever, 1,000 pirates laid down their guns and gave up piracy. Oh, what a party that must have been. And I went, like, and this was a true thing, but I knew nothing else about it. I just thought, I need to save that nugget for later. Still haven't written the book. I've started it 900 times. I've written several other pirate books before that, but you stumble upon ideas. I almost always stumble upon ideas for new books, researching a different book, almost entirely. That is the way it is. Ideas, that's easy. Ideas is easy. I love the idea of thinking of those other little things, the texture and the pieces that go in it. Often when I'm writing a nonfiction, it has more holes in it than anything else, because I'm also a fiction writer. So I want the page to sound beautiful. In Counting Birds, I used a lot of alliteration, a lot of just sort of words that sounded nice, because there's a lot of lists of birds in it. So I was able to choose the birds. But then, so I'd left a big hole, lots of, I print in all caps in red when I want to alert myself to go right back there to do the research. So I don't often stop to do the research. I put big things saying, is this true? Or is there something here that I need to say? Because a lot of times I wind up making up stuff, because as a fiction writer, you make up stuff to make that whole page go together. But in nonfiction, you have to go back and make sure that you didn't, many of them say, did I make this incorrect?
Well, that's a great point, because I really had to learn how to reread as a researcher.
Yeah.
That I infer quite a bit from research. So when I was my favorite, I think of this as my blooper reel. That when that like I was reading about Rube and his love of his first car, Minerva. And because I had a Minerva in my Fairy Godmother series, I saw this as a cosmic link between me and Rube Goldberg. And then I kept saying that he named the car Minerva, but it was a Minerva. That was a type of car. And I had been reading it incorrectly, literally for years, thinking that this was some connection. And so learning to find facts has also been a journey of sorts, because then we know how to integrate the facts as storytellers, but making sure they are facts has been, as I said, like a blooper reel. Like, oh, she that she read that wrong.
Yep. And you get these things in your head that you have to vet everything coming out. I'm working on one nonfiction project with another co-author, not my mom, a different co-author. And we spend a ton of time sort of talking on the phone or Skyping. And I know there's this one fact that she's like, isn't this amazing? I'll go back and I'll find it in my research. And I think she spent the last 3 weeks just rereading everything to try and find it in her research. Make sure when you find those interesting facts that you can refine them, because that's always fun, because then it's very hard to figure out which parts you've made up and which parts because you always need to refine that research.
Also, in this world of internet research, the websites change. So I've been researching something for a book, and every time I go to the website, I write a date, and I've been tempted to take a picture, because they keep updating their website, and little things are changing as they're finding out more. So that's been a new interesting rub in terms of our stay-at-home researching.
Yeah, definitely. Here, I have a fun hint that I have been finding for nonfiction that's been working for me. It's not something I do on all projects, but it's definitely something I've been finding has been working more for nonfiction projects for me. And I started doing this with the Unsolved Mysteries from History series, because in a nonfiction story, you already have all the facts. You have the arc of your story. You need to figure out, let's say this is the arc of someone's life. You need to figure out where you're telling your arc. Is it this part? Is it the whole thing? Is it here? Where is it? It could be a sliding thing. So find your arc of your story. And I've been templating it. I've been definitely saying, page 4 or 5. Okay, if you need a template for a 32-page picture book, please go look up Debbie Ohi. It's OHI. She has the best templates, but you can find them all over the internet, but hers are the best. But really figuring out how that story, almost like a timeline, I'm placing the timeline within the pages, the confines of a picture book. It never stays exactly that way, but it really shows me the arc of the story. And then I'm working with an armature. And I'm a lister. I am an organizer. Oh my gosh, when I'm under stress, I organize my bookshelves. I can't tell you what my house looks like right now, bookshelf wise, because nothing is where it was 3 weeks ago. Nothing, not a single book. But I love that form, that ability to have something that I'm looking at, can change it. It's not set in stone. It's not concrete, but it gives me a starting point. And that armature helps, because I'm not a plotter. I wouldn't do that so much with a fiction book. I always have the beginning and the end of something in fiction, no matter what the size is. But I just got to stumble around to figure out how I'm getting from here to there. But with a nonfiction, you're working with a set of data already. So why not build yourself an armature first?
It's true. I totally agree. And I think that the discovery of the structure, the discovery of where you want that book to begin and end, also reveals what that story means to you.
Yep.
That there is a reason why you found that story, because either the subject matter means a lot, or there's a detail that jumped out that speaks to how you see the world.
Yeah. And I would also caution against thinking about the arc as being the standard. I'm going to use air quotes because it's not necessarily my thing, but that standard arc of a picture book, with the rising tension, the inciting incident, all this stuff. I want to caution you that a lot of times a nonfiction will not fit into that. They really won't fit into that. Counting Birds, we were talking about Allison's son loves birds, so she loves this. So this is my book, Counting Birds. And I had a couple people turn it down because they didn't like the way I structured it. But I really felt that my arc was the way it needed to be. And it's nothing. They wanted to go to a very standard picture book arc. And a lot of times we say, just say yes. I don't often say, no, I won't revise that. Of course, I revised it once it was purchased by somebody who saw what I wanted to see with it. But there's one incident in this book. It's a true story of the Audubon Christmas bird count. Which is a citizen science project that started in the year 1900 by a man, Frank Chapman, who loved birds. That basically gives you the whole beginning of it. There's one incident where he does not like how they counted birds. Back in 1900, the sportsmen would go out and shoot the birds and basically count them on the ground. So he had an idea and he wanted to stop it. Now, the two publishers who turned it down said they would like the story of just that incident, which is great, except I'd have to make it all up. It really wasn't an incident. It was a nerdy guy who wrote magazines about birds, worked in the bird museum, in the bird exhibit in the Museum of Natural History in New York, and he saw this as an issue, and he wrote in his magazine, hey, let's stop this. Okay? That's not really an incident. There was no incident. He did not get out there and yell. He didn't do anything. For me, that was the inciting incident, but it happens right in the beginning of the book. That doesn't happen in a standard phrase, right? So the arc of this book looks like this. One thing happens in the beginning, and then he sets out to do something, and the arc goes up a little bit, and then it goes like this. Because that one idea spurred the first year 27 birders to do his count, and now today almost 80,000. So I wanted to show that growingness of it. And it's not to the last page that I come back, and the last line of that book is the same pretty much as the first line, but it says, and all this because Frank Chapman loved birds. So I bring it back to the beginning. I always love it when the beginning and the end
that happens.
But it's not a standard arc. It's more like an exploding, exponentially opening up arc. So don't constrain yourself when writing nonfiction with those true facts to the same thing that perhaps we talk about a lot when we teach writing picture books. So I hope that's a little fun little bit. I want to go too far into the nerdiness. I do that.
I want to pick up on this idea of not constraining ourselves, because I think that if this time has ever offered us the chance to write recklessly, it is now. It's now. I mean, if we thought we could control things, well, we were wrong. We were always wrong. There were always things we could not control. So now is the time not just to be kind to yourself and to be easy on yourself when the words aren't coming, but to think, not just dream big. Thank you, Peter Reynolds. But to dream recklessly, to think, why not? Instead of just what if, and to explore things that under normal circumstances you might not think you have the time to do or the inclination. Here is a time to take what you love and put it on the page. And that's how, I mean, this is, if there was ever a need for the power of play, this is the time, is to enjoy what you're writing and
Do
look at
something
what
new.
you're curious about.
Do something new. If you feel like you're a strict nonfiction writer, write a poem. Here's my favorite one. Here's my favorite little poem prompt, which is take a color, write a poem about that color. Don't just say, this is the color of, this is the color of. Tell me how it makes you feel. Does it spark memories of a certain time? So use that color as so if you're a nonfiction writer and you feel like you cannot write anything poetic, start with that. What if you're a poet and you think you can't write longer genres? This is a time, start a novel, jump into something unknown. I mean, like you said, the world just got really crazy unknown.
Right.
Why not?
If we're going to live with disruption, let's really embrace it. So if you're not a person who writes out of order, try writing out of order. It actually is very freeing to just write the ending. Go ahead, see what happens.
It's crazy there. That makes my head a little fuzzy.
See, my head is already fuzzy. That is, if you're a person who writes fiction and has always lived by writing word count, try something different. Try some drawing. Try writing. Try giving yourself a different parameter that will help you feel seen and productive. This is a moment where, let's just say, art is needed more than any other time. All of these tours of museums, these Broadway shows that we can see online, I want to see the creative spirit all the time and that creative heart. So we can do that ourselves. This is the time. This is the permission slip that maybe you have been waiting for. Take it.
Freeing. It's very freeing to write something that you have known your whole life that you can't do. It's freeing to do it. And here's the other thing, allow yourself to do it badly. That's I always say, I'm going to write a bad poem. People are like, oh, don't be so hard on yourself. That poem's great. It doesn't matter whether the poem is great or not. The poem served a purpose for me. It allowed me to write something without worrying about revisions or acceptance or pub committees or agent queries. It allowed me just to write. And often for me, that is what knocks the cobwebs out. That's what, greases the wheels, whatever metaphor you want to use. For me, giving yourself permission to write badly and maybe write something completely out of your wheelhouse.
If the word bad is triggering anybody and making I can't do that, write without expectations. That's how I put it, is that really my writing life changed when I committed myself to 6 months of writing without expectations in the year 2014. And I wrote all the things that I thought nobody thought I could do. And as sort of I'm going to say a rebellious nature. I wanted to see what actually I could do if I gave myself permission to try everything without that specter of the market, or it's going to be good, or it's going to be people will care. I read a lot about David Bowie, who tried lots of different things in his creative life to stimulate creativity. So writers, illustrators, here we are, as play with clay, paint watercolors, make doodles. Linda Berry, think like Linda Berry. Do something that no one thinks you should be doing, and see what happens when you do it.
Absolutely. I drew 2 pictures. I was like, I think I need to do some art. I don't do art. But I enjoyed it. I'm done. I did the 2. I'm good. But yeah, do something.
I always draw my characters, and and then I have like an evolution of them. I'm really trying now to make my noses different. All of my noses are just big round noses, and I need to sort of.
I drew birds.
I don't
It will be no surprise to anybody. I drew an owl and a chicken.
Finally, she said it. The word of the day.
Shocking. I assumed that it would be owl. I said it again.
Well, you are like when we ode to Owl Moon. We think of you.
Yes, absolutely. And here are my owlers in my book.
Oh, that's beautiful art. Who did the art?
That is Clover Robin, and she is amazing. Let me hold you this up. This is it's all cut paper, hand painted cut paper.
Wow.
Isn't that spectacular?
How much did you talk to her about the art?
0%.
What?
0%.
0%. I love that. I spoke zero times to Robert Nebecker about Just Like Rube Goldberg, and it's my favorite. It's my favorite thing to say.
So you want to know the crazy thing that I did? I just handed in a manuscript that I finished. I actually started when I was at Highlights last, which was just before everything shut down. I started a manuscript and I brought it home. It is 50 words. I've never written anything that, poetry, yes, 50 words. And I used art notes, which I never use art notes. But I wanted to tell this was a story I wanted to tell through the arc in the art. And the words are very poetic. I don't know. They're and repetitive. And so that was me stepping outside of my comfort zone.
Wow. I can't wait.
I love it. I hope an editor loves it, but you never know. The experience of writing it and really stepping outside that for me was perfectly worth it, even if no one ever buys it.
Yeah, that is, you know what, when I love the question from kids, how many books have you written? And I always take that moment to honor the books that I wrote that have not sold, that are in my drawer, that really taught me how to write and really, and paved the way for each next manuscript, because that journey is not linear. It's up and, I have yet to meet somebody who just flies straight up. We all have manuscripts that taught us something, but that have not yet found a new audience.
Yeah, I said that to somebody the other day. I said maybe, or maybe somebody else said it. I can't remember who said it first. Said that maybe that you need to set that manuscript aside. And we all know that that's often some advice. And there's sort of two ways to look at this. Sometimes you need to set a manuscript aside because it's so precious to you that you need to learn, especially early in your career, you need to learn some lessons with that manuscript safely away from your lessons. And sometimes it's because you're too close to it. And that's definitely not bad advice. Sometimes I put stuff aside. I put stuff aside all the time because I need to either get better at that format or let it percolate or any of those things. But I remember saying it to somebody who looked very deflated. And I said, no, that's not. Often your first manuscript is really your third manuscript.
Right.
You can come back to it, but you're not ready for that manuscript yet in your process.
This is where it raises the personal stakes for me, because the projects I enjoy working on the most are usually the ones I feel not quite worthy of. Mm-hmm. So I've got to stretch myself. But in stretching myself, I'll make a lot of wrong turns. So between those wrong turns, I need to put the manuscript away. And that time away, I'm building knowledge and intuition and confidence that I can do it. And then I go back with my confidence and I see that, yes, that reader was right. This isn't ready. Let's tackle this a new way. So I think that I know Laura Ruby said this to me once, and I will never forget it, that as writers, we need a thin skin so that we feel things. We can, feel other people's point of view. But as writers, we need a thick skin.
Yeah.
So that, can you have both? I'm still practicing. Let's go to the lightning round.
Oh, okay. All right. So much pressure. Okay.
So I know the pressure. So advice you always give.
Intentionality. Know everything before it goes on the page. Like
Cool.
The final stuff.
Favorite food while you're drafting?
Chai latte.
I'll remember that. Chocolate cake or apple pie?
Chocolate cake.
Sisters. Here is a loaded question that I ask everyone, but it's really loaded for you. When do you let your mother read your drafts?
Yes, my mother reads all my drafts, but honestly, she doesn't read them till the end of my process. Sometimes I will hand her, I joke that people ask me if I have a critique group, and I always say, no, my whole life is a critique group. Both my brothers, I work with that. I mean, but yes, she reads everything that I write, but not generally in the beginning. Sometimes I will send her stuff early on, and I'll say, this is really early on, but what do you think? Should I keep working on it? She's not tough enough on me. If that makes any sense. I think I'm super, super tough on her, which is really funny. When we're working together, she's really tough on me. But when it's my own project, I sometimes feel like she doesn't really go in.
She's your mommy.
Because she's so proud. So that's sort of a funny little thing about that. I'd like to think it's because my writing is so clean. It doesn't, but I doubt that's why. But this project, the very short project, I sent it to her and to another friend. And they both came back saying the ending isn't quite right. They had two different ideas of how to work it. I triangulated that, came up with my own ending, and it absolutely fixed it. So yeah, I always send myself.
I was talking about that with my Get to Know Your Novel class this week. Yep. About when you get feedback, it's not a to-do list for publication. It's opening a door. It's a conversation. And the best thing you can ask yourself is, why did they say this? And come up with an answer yourself. That is, to me, the thing that I have learned over the years that has made feedback the most welcome invitation, because it's an invitation to open the door.
Yeah, no, I think that's
last question is if we were sitting at Highlights and you and Amanda said, I want to make your favorite meal, what would it be at Highlights?
Well, anything Amanda, it has to have the mashed potatoes with the pools of butter. She knows when she sees my name on the list that there will be mashed potatoes.
The giant yellow pool of butter.
Not gonna lie, that's my pool of butter.
That's amazing. I like the French toast casserole.
I haven't had that there, I don't think. I made one. I imagine it'd be amazing. Maybe I have. I don't remember it. I don't know.
It's amazing. Anyway, let's take some questions.
I saw a question that was really great in there. It said, how do you organize your research on a nonfiction project? I thought that was an amazing question. Do you want to, shall we start?
Go for it.
I'm going to tell you my organizational strategy is Post-its and a pad of paper. When I'm reading research, I posted everything. Often I have more Post-its than pages of the book that I'm using as research. A lot of my projects that I'm working on have their own bag. Like I have all of the research. They start in piles and then they wind up in bags. I love writing at unworkshop time at Highlights. So I often have bags. Like if I'm going there to work on a project, that project has a big, shoulder bag of all the stuff. But I would say when I have a question I haven't answered in it, I put it on a Post-it. You can actually see some pictures of my rooms at Highlights with Post-its all over it. Those are always questions that I need to go back into the research for. And And then I have, while I'm reading research, I just run long lists of facts down on just a regular pad of paper. Like I'd like just a regular, size piece of lined paper. And I also, as I'm writing the facts down that I know that I want, I write the book and the page, and then I post-it the book, because it's always losing that research, not knowing where it is, like we were talking about before, for me is the big tragedy. Because then I always feel like I'm just going to delete it from the book, but that's not a great way to do it. So Post-its and a pad of paper is my, and a big bag is my research organizational.
Yeah, I learned this the Rube Goldberg way, is a complicated, circuitous route of losing research, finding research, putting it, like it was, I was learning as I was doing this. And now from my experience working on that book and the patience of my editor, thank you, Alan Johnston, I now also keep a notebook per project. And I fill that notebook, like Heidi, with Post-it notes, but also with research and things I've printed, citations, and I make a lot of dummies from all my books now, all my picture books, is that I try to see the book in the dummy form, and then I'll note research per fact on the page of the dummy, so that I can go back. I really just like making the dummy.
I'm laughing because my dummy style is also Post-its. So I make, I buy the big paper and do, you take 2 pieces of paper, fold them. That makes one signature. A signature is the piece of the book. And then you do that to 32. And then I staple those. And then I put the text and the idea on Post-its so that I can move them around. See, Post-its is my strategy for everything, I think.
That's right. I mean, I don't know. I also have a whiteboard. And when I was working on the Fairy Godmother 4 book, I had a book Bible on my whiteboard so that I could see what I could remember the characters, and make sure that I was following each character's arc. And I think that's been a helpful thing. That whiteboard was a good investment.
That's cool. Have you found a question you like?
Yeah, well, let's talk about virtual book celebrations, because I love talking about celebrations. And this is a time where Linda has a book coming out, and yes, Nancy, I think I will write a book about David Bowie. I think that's a great idea. Why haven't I thought of that? Anyway, how do we celebrate now in this time of stay at home?
I have no idea. I wish I had a better answer than that. Look, you have to be creative in this virtual book. I mean, in any kind of, I don't think it's a whole lot different, except that you're not doing it live. So you always have to be creative. These days, in a good situation, this is obviously not a good situation, you have to be creative. How are you going to bring that to people? And I truly believe that you are part of your brand. You very much are part of your book. So you want to get out there. I don't know what the actual things are. SCBWI has been doing some great, promotions on virtual book. I've had some friends do really clever things where they've sent they've asked their friends to post funny things. Like if you have some aspect of your story that can be duplicated by different people. If it's a book about cats and pictures with the picture of the book to all of your friends with cats, so that they can all post their cat. I'm saying cats because Romeo is sitting here with me.
Oh,
yeah, he's a love. He's loving the quarantine. So think outside the box. What makes your book unique? Where are you going to try and market it? I reached out to all sorts of Audubon people when I wrote a book about the Audubon bird count. You know, if your book is about something specific, where are the communities on social media that you could talk about your book? But you know, there's lots of ways. This is not my strong suit, unfortunately. Do you have any fabulous ideas, Sarah?
Well, one is I want to reinforce, talk to your leaders at your SCBWI region. In Illinois, we're starting to organize some group virtual launch parties. I also think that don't think you have to do it yourself, that get all your friends to do something, that a party was never going to be the moment where you sold thousands of books. It was always meant to be a celebration of your book. So find a way to feel good about celebrating your book, and reach out to people who can help you do that. I also believe in the half birthday celebration. And you know, my sister's birthday is December 23rd. Who wants a birthday party, you know, at that time between Hanukkah and Christmas? So we always celebrated a half birthday for her. And I think that the more that as we look forward into the future, I think that we should all be getting together to support each other. The best book launch I ever had was the book launch where I asked 10 of my friends to read something from their works in progress for the audience. And so it wasn't just about me, it was about community. And I think that still was one of the best things I've ever done. And I think we could do that either virtually or we can wait when we were all together again, because I'm gonna wanna celebrate a lot when we're all together again. And I'm gonna want to hear about all the books.
Do we have time for one more question?
Let's do one more question.
I see this one that I love, which is Lee Wind asks, how do you know when to keep revising or move on from a book that isn't resonating for agents or editors, but that you love? And I thought that was a really good question. And I have a sort of a twofold answer, which is sometimes it's best to set it aside because here's why. That's frustrating. That's hard to hear, and it can be demoralizing. So sometimes setting it aside and letting it sit for a little while, moving on, doing some other stuff, reading similar genre stuff, watching the market, see what's already in the market in that vein, where you project the market to be going. And perhaps when you come back at it with new eyes, because I never get rid of anything. There's no unless I decide it's not good. And I have a drawer full of that, believe me. And I sometimes go, oh, I'm going to go back to those. And then I'm like, no, they really are no good. But if you love it, never completely get rid of it. You might come back to it years later. I'm not suggesting you need to leave it for years, but you might come back to it years later and look at it. Here's the other part of that. If it is feeding you, if that book, writing that book is making you feel good and you're learning things about yourself and about the subject and about the bookmaking progress itself, then keep working on it. Not everything is going to get published. Wow, that's hard to say. Not everything is going to get published. Some things need to be written anyway. Some things you're writing just for yourself. I don't know, Lee, if that's the case for this book, but those are your options. And I've set a bunch of stuff aside because people have not wanted. And then I found other publishers, smaller publishers, thought, ooh, maybe this, I revisit the manuscript, make sure it's as good as I think it might be. And then I send it to specific publishers myself. I'm waiting on a couple books that maybe my agent didn't love, but so I'm sending it out for somebody else specifically because I think it might be good for that house. That's why it's important to know the market, know the smaller publishers, and figure out how you want your career to go.
Yep. I'm going to add one thing to that because everything Heidi said is true.
Sometimes.
But I also want to say that if you love a story and you've put it aside and you haven't, I'm in that place right now with a manuscript where I've sent it out. I really thought it was a book that was for right now. Like I thought it was just a fantastic topic, well written. All my critique partners loved it. Like I was, it got to acquisitions a couple of times. I had that confidence that this was a story that was mine and that that should sell, and it didn't. It just didn't. And so what I did last night was I deleted my manuscript and I'm writing it again.
Ah,
I like the delete button.
I
I have deleted whole novels, but I'm going to say that what I came up with last night when I deleted, still knowing everything about that manuscript, came out fresh and new, still knowledgeable. And it was, that delete gave me the freedom to reimagine. Now, my agent has the old, she's got the old, if I really want to comb through my email, I can find it. Sometimes I delete a whole discovery draft and no one else has it. I like to delete. It wakes me up.
This is
But
going to keep me up at night, Sarah. This is going to keep me up at night. I'm going to need anxiety.
secret
I'm
sauce.
going to be worried about your manuscripts being deleted.
But sometimes you really need permission to look at something a new way and to challenge yourself in a new way to look at that topic. Sometimes doing something radical like that is exactly the right thing. So George is back, which means I am going to let him go.
This has been a grand old time. Thank you both so much. I was going to give you a whole speech about everything great about the Highlights Foundation, but as we're running out of time, know that the highlightsfoundation.org, you can find the recordings of this and all of our other sessions. If you enjoyed this and you have the ability and the interest, we'd love to get a $5, $10 donation from you at our donation spot on our website. And also, both Sarah and Heidi will be on the Highlights Foundation campus this fall. Fingers crossed, looking forward to seeing both of you in person for your workshops. Thank you all so much.
Thank you. If you're, I am behind on last week's questions, but I'm going to keep answering those questions. So if you've left a question and it didn't get answered, expect an email from me.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.